Great Debaters Contest is brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.
We're in one of the most agriculturally rich counties, Kiambu region, the Great Debaters Contest. I am Austin Nyambok.
And I am Mariam Bishar. Welcome. We have Kiambu Giants, Alliance High School, and Loreto Limuru debating on whether over-reliance on foreign investors limits local participation in economic development. Proposal number 1, you have 3 minutes.
Over-reliance on foreign investors limits local participation in economic development. Proposing this motion is Elsie Nyangor, Loreto High School, Limuru. Over-reliance is excessive dependence on somebody in order to succeed. An investor is somebody who puts money into a project to make it a success. Foreign means coming from without the country in discussion, while local means coming from within the country in discussion. Economic development, on the other hand, is the sum total of changes that result in the improvement of an individual's lifestyle in a country. To begin with, over-reliance reduces employment opportunities for our very own locals. The Thika Superhighway, for example, was constructed under the supervision of Chinese constructors. We do not refute the fact that an average Chinese high school student is the equivalent of a Kenyan engineer. We dispute the fact that, or rather we protest the fact that simple jobs such as digging of trenches was allocated to in Chinese. Of what good is it to us that if we neglect our very own and give opportunities such as digging of trenches to foreigners, it shuts out locals? It is scandalizing to learn that Djibouti earns more from foreign goods and ships than it earns from its locals. In fact, in Djibouti, half the population is unemployed. That is, 50% of people in Djibouti are unemployed. Let's give them an allowance. Like 10%, for instance, are crippled. This leaves us with 90% who can perform manual jobs. In Kenya, it is a requirement that high students in high school should do their duties. I scrub parts, you scrub parts. You cannot tell me that you will leave high school, you will go through high school for 4 years without having scrubbed a single part. Yet even in Djibouti, foreigners are being employed to do simple things such as this. If I were to ask you which country you think was recently declared bankrupt, I'm sure you'd say something like Zimbabwe. We're used to them being in debt. In fact, it is said that in Zimbabwe, a loaf of bread is purchased by currency in a wheelbarrow. Well, guess what? Have you heard of Aristotle, Plato? Greece, the mother of most early day philosophers, has gone bankrupt. It owes the World Bank $1.6 US. This does not mean that Greece has no enterprising citizens whom it can borrow from. Now, if Greece, the over-reliance of Greece on the World Bank, undermined their dignity. We're not saying that reliance is bad. Look at the analogy of an eagle. When a female eagle is looking for a mate, it picks a twig, soars into the air for an interested male eagle to come and pick the twig and take it to eat again. It does this over and over again to test the commitment of a female eagle. Based on the test of colonialism, can we trust them by over-relying on them? Over-reliance limits local participation in a huge way. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your opening remarks.
Clement Nyiro from the Alliance High School, ready to strongly oppose the motion which states over-reliance on foreign investors limits local participation on economic development. One may ask, what is over-reliance on foreign investors? Well, this is the over-dependence of foreign people to come and put their money in a business so that they can make a profit out of it. What is local participation on economic development? Well, this is the involvement of the people of a particular country to help in developing the economy of that country. McHugh, participation doesn't just mean investment. It also means employment or taxation. The mere fact that you're employed and that salary is taxed, you are participating in economic development. Take a good look at Coca-Cola. Take a look at Kentucky Fried Chicken or General Motors. All these are companies that have sold their brands to Kenyans so that they can carry out their business. They haven't limited anybody from carrying out the business because all they just do, they sell their brand to you and you do everything. That is participation because workers are employed from Kenya. The leaders of that company are Kenyans, and thus we are participating in economic development. Look at James Mwangi, Equity. We saw Equity rise from the 90s to 80s today as the second largest bank in Kenya. Equity is solely a Kenyan company under James Mwangi. As you have seen, Equity has risen, and despite there being foreign investors, it has been able to rise up to the challenge. Now, this just tells us that even us as locals, we can have our breakthroughs in participating in economic development. These guys do not come and hinder us, yet they just give us that competition, that little oomph to start your business, and there you can be. You can be at the top. Foreign investors, well, they have helped in a couple of ways. Look at Samsung, UN Habitat, Community Chest of Korea, and CNT. All these are companies that have come together to start the LEAP-UP project in secondary schools. This is a project where secondary students can set their projects, and if the projects are very good, they can be developed by the foreign investors. Have they limited local participation on economic development? No, because our projects are out there, we are being taxed, we are investing, and all this is leading to economic development. Finally, look at Tullow Oils, the British company mining petroleum in Gamiawan. Look at the Royal Dutch Company, the company that is mining oil in Nigeria. These are all companies that have come to bring capital. What will you have done if we didn't have the capital? The resources will be untapped, and thus we will have done nothing out of it. Remember, they are not limiting us from economic development. Thank you.
Time for cross-examinations. Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
When it comes to money, we speak the same religion. Have you ever heard of Pepsi? Let me tell you, it's a company that was killed by us, Kenyans, going to Coca-Cola, all of us. Who left Pepsi? It's Kenyans. It's our parents who became unemployed. No one else but our parents. History tells a tale I'd like to retell in this place. A few years back, the United States of America started investing in Cuba. The tourism sector grew. They started using the US dollar as an acceptable means of currency. The Cuban currency was overshadowed to a point that professionals like doctors, engineers, scientists started working as taxi drivers and waiters simply to be paid in dollars. What a total waste of intellectual talent. It meant that the doctors who would have been treating the sick people for the sick to go back to growing the economy, the engineers who would have been building infrastructure, the scientists who would have been innovating more and more, a growing economy was said goodbye to, and that was the beginning of their economy miseries. Have you ever heard of Rivertex, a company based in Nakuru? The cloth manufacturing company was kicked out of the market by us importing mitumba, second-hand clothes. These second-hand rate clothes killed that industry. This demon called foreign investment has no mercy. It comes and employs our parents, ruins our pride, comes and takes control of our own economy. Hashtag Kenya ni yetu, Kenya is ours. Let's take control of our own economy. If these are the fruits of foreign investment, I'd rather starve, and so should you. Hashtag, I repeat, hashtag, Kenya is ours. This country is ours. Let's take control of our own economy.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your rebuttal.
Over-reliance on foreign investors limits local participation in economic development. This was a very hard motion to tackle. But at the same time, if you look at it from both ways, Over-reliance on foreign investors, does it really limit our local participation in economic development? The proposers of this motion mentioned that employing our parents by these foreigners limits local participation in economic development. Do they not know that once our parents get employed by these foreigners, they are paid salaries? And these salaries are taxed by our own government. And our tax goes to building our own economic development. Building our economy does not really mean that you must participate by everyone in Kenya having their own business. If everyone had their own business in Kenya, we would be a country heading nowhere. The second point the first speaker from our proposing side said was about the Chinese story and the Thika Superhighway. Did you at any one time see the Chinese themselves building those trenches? The Chinese did not build these things themselves. They employed us Kenyans. They employed the locals, the natives from this country who did not know or did not have any job, so that they can come and build these trenches, so that they can give them a livelihood. They can give them something to fend for their families. The third thing they said was that the Greeks have a debt of $1.6. That to me is about 96 Kenyan shillings, which is not correct. The Greeks do have a debt of the World Bank, which is $1.6 billion. Where did this money come from? The Greeks had their own money in their bank. If you look at the history of the Greeks were among the richest people those years, in the 1800s. But their leaders, their own leaders, the people they've entrusted to build their economy, were the same people who squandered this money. And did you want the World Bank to leave them to drain a loan? The World Bank offered them a loan. If you're in need, then the World Bank simply helped them. Over to adding to my first speaker's points, we can see, as per the Capital Markets Authority, a foreign investor in Kenya cannot fully own or participate in his own company 100%. If you look at the rules for the Capital Markets Authority, CMA in Kenya, a foreigner is only allowed to handle only 75% of shares in this country as the maximum. That limits him from participating 100%. That tells us that a foreigner cannot participate in our country 100%. We have to buy 25% of the shares in any foreign company. Go from Barclays to Safaricom to all the other foreign companies you know, to Standard Chartered. All of them have over 25% shares owned by our own Kenyans. And look at the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Nairobi Stock Exchange is open to all Kenyans. You cannot tell me because you're a local in Kenya, you won't buy any shares in Nairobi Stock Exchange. And which are the companies in Nairobi Stock Exchange? Companies in the Nairobi Stock Exchange are the likes of Barclays, Standard Chartered, Safaricom, all of them foreign companies which offer us shares to buy. We are participating by buying those shares. We have participated. Over-reliance on foreign investors does not really limit local participation in economic development. Thank you.
M-Pesa ndio nahisi nikiwaza hizi, nivyojitolea kuipenda, bila M-Pesa sina.
Take part in the M Challenge by sending your short song, rap, or poem about Safaricom M-Pesa on WhatsApp, and you could win 1,000 shillings in Safaricom airtime.
The proposers have been asked if by saying that we should not employ foreigners, are they also implying that Kenyans should not be employed abroad? And the opposition have been asked how would they relate an issue like xenophobia in South Africa to their motion. They'll be responding shortly. Proposers, you have 3 minutes.
Jane Pauline Pamba, Loreto High School, Limuru. I'm here to respond to a question asked by Vincent Ngetich. You asked whether Kenyans should not be employed abroad, and you gave an example of Vincent Wanyama. None of us said that Kenyans should not be employed abroad. We only said that the expatriates from foreign countries should not dominate what is ours, what is our employment. And we gave an example of Djibouti, where 50% 50% of their population is not employed. Why? Because they import their manual labor. Manual labor is things like working in the toilets or scrubbing the pavements. This is a Stedler pencil. It's a Stedler pencil. How many of you in their lives have used a Stedler pencil? Anywhere? Great. This pencil is made in Germany. How many of you have used or even own a pencil made in Kenya? Okay, let's put it down a little. A Kafogo pencil, because that is what we call the pencils made in Kiambu. Anyone? My exact point. We over-rely so much on what foreigners invest in us. We even use these pencils to do our Kenya Certificate of Primary Education examinations. And what happens? We take back the profits to them. And what happens to our own? What happens to our own industries? They fail. We buy what is called mtumba, and our own industries fail. Lamborghini Mercy, Maserati, Porsche, Ferrari, all these are what we call class cars. Anybody who's not heard of such cars? Thought so. So who's heard of the Nyayo Pioneer car? Wow, you've heard of it. That's great. One person in the whole audience. The whole audience. Nyayo Pioneer car is what Kenyans made as an invention to Kenya. That car was not able to be massively produced. Why? Because we don't have the funds. We have to depend on other funds. We have to over-rely on other people to make what is ours. We've heard of Otieno from Britain making this. M-Pesa went from us. We invent things, but they don't stay here. Why? Because we over-rely so much on things that come from the outside country. We don't even trust our own things. We use Luminac instead of Ken Poly cups. You cannot present tea to a person using a Ken Poly cup, a plastic cup. People would look at you as if you're insane. Why would you? Because we do not trust in what is ours, what is quality. We're not saying that reliance is bad, but over-relying, really, you're killing what is ours.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to respond to the audience.
Cyril Mishino, Alliance High School. I'd first of all like to tackle the question, xenophobia in South Africa, which to me was quite a good question. But I'd take you back to our topic today, over-reliance on foreign investors. Then I come and tell you what caused xenophobia in South Africa. What caused xenophobia in South Africa is not foreign investors, but the foreign workforce. So that's one thing you need to consider. And even speaking of this workforce and everything, this xenophobia only attacked small guys with small, not even businesses, employed in companies. And it was mostly by illiterate guys, people who, even without that foreign workforce, would not have a chance in these companies. So xenophobia relates in no way to the motion at hand. And to add to the motion, I speak of foreign over-reliance, and it's quite helpful to us. Look at the official development assistance called ORDER, which mostly concentrates on education, infrastructure, and health. This is the kind of health they're giving us. They sponsoring we locals in education makes us literate so that we can participate in economic development, so that we can have businesses, so that we can even be employed. That is local participation. And another good spec about these foreign investors is that they even give us foundations and ideas to even participate in this economic development. Take an example of Benson Oiguru. Look at Britam. Benson Oiguru formed Akon, the Akon, from Britam. He got the idea, got clients, and formed Akon. Isn't this promoting local participation in economic development? That's promotion, not limitation. I heard my opponents really speak about ISAP, not really ISAP, the Zimbabwe economy going so low. But I believe you've not heard of ISAP, Economic Structural Adjustment Program. The economy of Zimbabwe never went low because of mere foreign investors. It was their wanting. The ZIDERA Act, Section 4C of their constitution, is the one that placed financial restrictions on the Zimbabwe people. That is what caused the downfall of the economy of Zimbabwe. So there is in no way connection to this over-reliance in foreign investors, but their own wanting. You speak of Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Do you know that Coca-Cola in Kenya is not run by anyone from outside? It's purely Kenyan. That's one thing we all need to know. They just sold our brand to give us an opportunity to participate in it. From leadership to the mere guy who's selling Coca-Cola, even to promoters, advertisement. They're giving you the brand so that you can participate in your own economic development. Isn't this an advantage of these foreign investors? Just to end my point, from Nairobi Stock Exchange being open to all of you, to you being given brands to such a companies, KFC and everything, to even Capital's Market Authority regulating foreign investors, the percentage of owning their own investments. I believe foreign investors are not really limiting, but promoting our local participation in economic development. Thank you.
We'll now hear closing statements. Proposers, you have 1 minute.
Crown it all, I'd like to say that my colleagues and I are not against foreign investment at all. We appreciate the fact that no man is an island. We all need somebody to lean on. And correction, ISA did not actually work with Zimbabwe. It was a speculation that ISA would come in to help Zisco Steel, a company that mines steel in Zimbabwe, and take over the country's debt. It did not actually work out. ISA pulled out. In addition, workforce is human resource investment, so you cannot claim that workforce is not an investment. I would like to invite my learned opponents to go back to their books, to look at ISA, the project on ISA again. Our point is that a country should not over-rely. Reliance is not bad. For Kenya, for instance, it has titanium deposits. Our point is that Kenya should go look for countries that are more experienced in mining of titanium and work with them and ensure that Kenyans are still employed, but they do not dominate, but the foreigners do not dominate. Thank you.
Opposition, you also have a minute for your final submission.
Cyril Machino again. Over-reliance on foreign investors limits local participation in in economic development. She just said, she just asked us to go and refer to ISAP, but I just say go and refer to the ZIDERA, Section 4C of the Zimbabwe Constitution that was scrapped. It gives you a good breakdown of what it was all about. No foreign investors, just the Zimbabweans, the parliament guys who approved this structural program. That's one thing we need to put into place. We always speak of untapped resources, and they don't understand the motion. Our motion is the limitation posed by these guys. But at the end of the day, they come to places we don't even participate in. Look at oil. Without foreign investor, who in Kenya can afford an oil rig, let's say in Nigeria, to go mine that oil? So at the end of the day, they've not limited you. It's something that would remain untapped if they weren't there. And we've given you a whole load of examples. Nairobi Stock Exchange, foreign companies. This is one thing we need to know. They're not limiting us, but promoting our participation. Thank you.
Elsie, I'll start with you, Elsie. I think you're very confident and you have passion and conviction, of course, and you're a good speaker. Easter, you're a cross-examiner. It only tells us that you've been listening to these other people, and so you come over to weaken their points and rebuttals. Jane, very good. You really come across, to bring in the soberness in the motion. Just when you ended with the cups example, I thought, did they come from abroad or were they made here? Because you talked about the plastic cups, so I thought, what about the other cups?
Alliance High School of Season 5 debate, and I think I really need to commend you because you've done a lot of research, you're well read, and you're extremely confident. I just want to talk to Karanja first. The stage presence is there. And I think I just like you in your team. Not to say that the others are bad. No, I just like you because, I can see you and I can feel you, when you stand on stage. Guys, you are red and you're willing to defend your position. I just enjoyed your presentation, and that is the advantage of research. Once you research, believe you me, and you are able to execute your content, definitely you are going to win the debate. And I think you've won the debate maybe, but it was a good presentation.
Loreto High School, Limuru. The judges awarded you 66.3%. Please give them a round of applause. Alliance High School, the brother school to our hosts. The judges awarded you 76%. You are our winners for the debate.
Bravo to the gentlemen of Alliance High. We'd like to thank all of you for making time to watch the show. We know it was definitely worth your time. And we'd also like to thank our sponsors, Safaricom M-Pesa, and to thank KBC Channel 1. I am Mariam Bishar.
And I am Austin Nyambok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest was brought to you by Safaricom M-Pesa.